What's up, guys? Just waiting on a few more, and then we'll get going. All right, so let's get started here. How's everyone doing? I actually was locked out of my office till 7 this morning, so kind of pissed. My little fob wouldn't work, so it's something I'm going to have to discuss with the building again. So let's get right into it. We got IFMK daily chart. It's a lower float. It's a Chinese food supplier company, I think. I mean, as January this year, they were trading at 18 bucks a share. Earnings announcements weren't great, it looks like, and have been kind of pushing this down on low volume for a while. You can see there was kind of a similar drop back in March, and it did recover and actually got above where it dropped down from, and now it's doing the kind of same pattern. At this point, there's no real play for me except watching it kind of into the afternoon. If I miss anything on this, it's not a big deal. So there was this kind of random drop last week, and I was watching it. It came up. I saw something on Twitter, and so I pulled this chart up and did see it was dropping on low volume. And I think we may have been doing a webinar at the time. I don't know, but I was considering dip buying, kind of that random panic, but I just didn't know exactly what was going on here. You can see it got down to $1.75. And I was watching it. I think we were watching it. It was just super liquid. It was like there wasn't, too much to go off of. And you can see even since then, like the last couple days since then has been really liquid. And then today it's popping, which leads me to believe it's probably a chat pump of sorts. They did release a PR on the 1st, which I think was the day of that big drop. The day after the big drop, and I'll tell you what they say. News time frame a week. iFresh issues statement on recent stock volatility. Leading Asian American grocery supermarket chain, online grocer, announced it was unaware of any material developments considering its business operations that's not publicly available. They have not selectively disclosed any material, non-public information to analysts, investors, or anyone else. No one in the company, to the knowledge of the company, any controlling shareholder sold or purchased common shares of stock. Company management believes prudent to advise the market of this given recent fluctuation stock price. Okay, so basically they're saying they have no clue why it's dropping. And I saw that here, and it still kind of interested me. Okay, maybe we'll get back up, and it did just today. I mean, technically volume-wise, it's kind of low, but it's doing, all-time. It looks like this IPO'd February of 17, but it looks like it's doing, is record volume right now. That being said, I don't know. I think the plays kind of passed you by if you missed the actual bounce. Intraday setting up. We've got set a low here at 320. So if this holds, you may get a nice little bounce back towards the highs. But like I said, you have to kind of keep this one into perspective as well, which is it's in a long-term downtrend, and it's now kind of gotten back up to that downtrend. So in terms of this trade, I know David asked a question. He said, supposing we're at market open watching it, Gapped up, holding 250. If you look at the daily chart, you can see first resistance 385. Now the question, how to catch this play. So this is one of those things like, had I been watching this, yeah, maybe like a high a day break you could have played, or maybe the pull back to high a day. But it was doing such kind of low volume this morning, it's kind of tough. This would be a tough one to catch, you know, unless you were literally watching this. And even then, yeah, I mean, it's a quickie. For me, had I been playing this, I would have had small size and been out definitely as it was kind of approaching this 385, 386 level, which, not coincidentally, it did top out at 385 on that initial run. So this is the kind of thing that, in my opinion, it could squeeze again. You know, there will be people shorting this at 380. And if it were to break back above high a day, you know, it could squeeze some more. But I'm not too comfortable with it. You know, I'm not 100% comfortable with this play, especially now that it's kind of a gap fill of sorts. Gap, you know, it wasn't a gap down, but it was a large crack down, and then it's recovered and gotten back up to that level. So I see no reason for this to really go beyond this other than maybe a short squeeze or some momentum. You know, there were kind of eyes on this thing for the first time in a long time, so IFMK, if I was kind of trying to play maybe for one more push towards high day, I would consider buying this now. You know, it's kind of holding VWAP decently, and you got a double bottom, a pretty definitive double bottom at 320 area. So I'm undecided on this. You know, it's kind of like that gap fill strategy to me, and the gap filled itself. And kind of like you saw in SSLJ, once it got back up there, buyers just kind of died out. So only two real plays for me here. One would be if it were to hold this 320 level, which it looks like it's probably not going to do. Because like I said, gap's kind of filled. Or consolidation all day, end of day, high day break. And then you're looking at closing above these levels here, and a possible push towards, like, you know, $5 or something, but that's hopeful, and I'm not going to play it for now. I will keep an eye on it, but you know, like I said, gap fill type strategy, which this is kind of like a, to me, somewhat of a gap fill, and it filled the gap, so I'm pretty much over that. XO I've had eyes on. Working on a breakout here. Had this big move due to the Ford rumors / news back in November. Fade, you know, multi-month fade back down to $1.20. And since then, it's kind of been in a really, really slow, steady uptrend with 220 as resistance, which it's holding now. So I actually have already taken a couple shares of XO. I think they're doing earnings soon. It might be today. So this isn't the kind of thing I'm going to hold overnight. This is just going to be kind of a quickie today, possibly. I've only got 3,000 shares. I got them at 219. It's a bigger float. It's going to move a little bit more slowly. So, you know, it's kind of, I'm not going to say safer, but it is safer than trading the low floats, obviously, when you don't have to worry about the floor falling out underneath and, you know, dropping a point in a minute. It's a little bit easier to be patient. So I'm just going to be patient on this one, see if I can't get a little bit more up and get it up to like 250 or something. But I'm going to keep it real, super realistic, and just go for a single here if I get it. I'm not going to hold overnight, most likely. I need to do a little bit more research into exactly when earnings are. Tom texted me a question earlier. I'll get to you. And I'm going to give you a call after we're done anyway. Let's see. David said entering at VWAP break isn't right. No. I mean, so like for VWAP for me, I don't use it for entries really. I really don't. You know, it's just kind of a gauge of strength to me and a gauge of who's you know, in a better position, shorts or longs. How many people are kind of, you know, it's kind of a gauge of who's green on the trade and who's not. So So VWAP itself, I'm not using that for an entry. John said earnings tonight, I believe. XO, yeah, that's my understanding too. So I'm not looking to hold this into earnings. Period. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll be back in 1 minute. Or sorry, 3 minutes. All right, sorry about that, guys. We're back. All right. So IFMK fading more, kind of like I said, this is a situation that you have to see happen a bunch of times to understand, but yeah, it's like a gap fill. So for me, this is pretty dead. If it pops, I'll miss it, and that's not a big deal. Yeah, strategy complete, and I missed it, so no big deal. Let's see. Now, when I say a play's done, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not watching it. I'm gonna keep it up on the screen. It's still one of the top percent gainers, but for me, it's probably dead. Okay. So there's IFMK. We had PTGX, which we spoke about yesterday, and it did exactly what I was saying. It did exactly what we were talking about in yesterday's webinar. I said I didn't want to chase this up in the 11s, and even though it was in gap fill territory, there is a financing with warrants at 10. Yeah, and so what I was saying yesterday is kind of a weak open red-green move is what I'd be looking for. Something down towards $10, which is exactly what we got. I think it bottomed out at 10.10, which means had I been watching, I would have gotten shares for sure. I probably would have started in at like 10.20, 10.25, even 10.30, kind of with that 10 risk in mind, and it would have worked out really well. Basically 2 points of upside. Dom asked me a question this morning. Is it really echoey, you guys? Okay, good. So let's see. Let me check out Dom's question quickly, because it was a good one. Why isn't PTGX short into resistance, overextended gap down from trading tickers? Most volume traded above 11 and failed to break 1150 several times yesterday and had to spike a decent amount this AM to get to that. Yeah, so this, for me, this is like there's two plays here. To the long side, it was strictly buy weakness this morning, go for green-red or red-green, which would have panned out. But on the same token, yeah, 1150 was some resistance yesterday that you could have technically been shorting into. Now you would have had to sit through like 30 cents of pain, to really take advantage of that or catch it back on the way down once it did fail to continue to break out today. So that was feasible. But like I said, it would have been pretty easy to be faked out on that move to 1180. And I'm sure a lot of people were. Obviously, you could have reshorted it and probably reshorted it here on the bounce. But at this point, it's sitting at $11. It could go either way, I would lean more to the short side, especially knowing that there's this financing going on and some warrants and whatnot. But that's it. Good question. So like when I set up a strategy for like a dip buy to 10, sometimes when I'm doing a watch list, especially once I start getting into short selling again, I'll also have the short in there too. So this could have been, obviously like a dip buy towards 10, get rid of it towards 1150 and then short sell if you want. Which I was doing a lot more of last year, like playing long and short, but it's cool. I like when, even if I don't catch a play, my thesis is right, which was don't chase yesterday, wait for a weak open red-green. 10's very important. I didn't just pick $10. It's that last bit of resistance here on the daily chart. So TMMI keeps going. Releases video player on Microsoft App Store. Establishes offices in New York City. Blah, blah, blah. I know John had a sweet trade on this. OTC multi-day breakout. This is not the one I'm talking about, actually. This is moving today. INND, sorry. INND. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, John, you're buying this breakout here, this multi-day breakout, on a former runner on volume up back here last week. So, yeah, I mean, that's a sweet continuation today and a dip back down to that breakout level. And I think John added on the dip today, so that's pretty sweet. Cool little OTC breakout there. And that's kind of what John and Dom have been playing more. I think out of this group, they like their OTCs and their OTC breakouts and whatnot. John bought 0.064 just before the breakout, then added this morning on the dip. Sick. Awesome. I was watching it. I was watching it yesterday afternoon, actually, and contemplating it. I just didn't take a position. So we got another one. TIS is one of the top percent gainers today. I have no clue what's going on here. It dropped yesterday, and it's recovering today. And it looks, I don't know. I have no clue what's going on here. Let me check if I can find any news. Yesterday they announced, yesterday they announced amendment to credit agreement, timing of second quarter earnings, blah, blah, blah. Okay, U.S. Bank National, additional liquidity through the ability of the company to borrow up to the full commitment under revolving line of credit. 33.1 million, debt reserve of 12.9 million. Yeah, I don't care about this. It is creeping up. I just don't know what to do with a chart like this, really. I mean, the stock is at all-time lows. I just don't know what to do with it, so I'm not going to touch it. So Exo cracked hard, and I stopped out. No big deal. I had a tight stop. It was like 5 cents, I think. So I lost a couple, oh, hold on. Yeah, I lost $100. No biggie. So EKSO for me was kind of a boredom trade. I was kind of looking for maybe a little run into earnings, but obviously it's cracked. Bigger float, no big deal to me. And that's kind of why I took just small size on a trade like this. Going into earnings, it's not a real catalyst. I mean, there is kind of a chart breakout here, obviously, occurring. But, you know, if earnings are bad, which usually their earnings are not good. I mean, you can see what happens every time they announce earnings. The stock drops. So I'm not going to hold it into earnings. I doubt earnings can be that good. This company generally sucks, you know, for the most part. So So no biggie. And that's kind of why I was taking small size on this. Yeah, John's asking about entries and risk. My entry was over here. So like we had the push to like almost 230. We had this push and a pullback to 215. This pullback to 215. I was buying it when it held VWAP this time at like 219 right here. And I was basically just going to risk 215. So this is actually one where I did set a stop. And my stop was actually set at 213 because I just gave it a few cents wiggle room. So just updated. I lost $248, which I'm okay with. So this isn't like, you know, I wasn't looking for a slam dunk here. I was looking for maybe a push to 250 and then just make, you know, a couple $100, but it's not the case. So I'll leave it alone. No, you know, with earnings coming up now, it's anyone's guess. I'm not gonna touch it anymore. XO stopped out. IFMK holding up okay, but like I said, not going to touch it for now. God, it's another slow day. It's just killing me. INND, I'm not going to play this far past the breakout level. And that's why, so like XO, for example, obviously the float's a little bit bigger, so it's going to move more slowly. But that's why, like, I don't play for the most part, and this kind of reinforces that again, but I don't really like playing breakouts, like just chart breakouts on NASDAQs. It just, my experience is that they're hit or miss. You know, it's just one of those things. It's not a strategy I like to use. Like, oh, breakout. It's just not for me. I mean, I need, unless there's a catalyst involved, like I promise you, if there was a catalyst actually moving this stock, any sort of real PR, you'd probably get a better push and a better breakout. So like if I'm playing breakouts on NASDAQs, I really do want to see a catalyst. Earnings after hours is not, I don't consider that a catalyst. We'll see what earnings does after earnings is released. So there's an example of just like kind of a bigger float NASDAQ breakout that's not really working. I mean, it's not dead. It's still sitting at 214, 215. But this is going to be choppy with going into earnings, so I'm going to leave it alone. Hey, sorry. Yeah, so John pointed me to this PR with Ford again, which does get my interest even more. Like I don't understand how I missed that, but that's certainly an awesome catalyst again. It's just a matter of, I mean, partially the float's bigger, so they've been diluting since that big run. Yeah, definitely piques my interest. It's just the earnings thing that gets me. You know, if not for earnings, I would be building a position right now for sure, 100%, like on this dip, and probably building anything towards two. But like I said, with earnings, it changes the game. So it's something I'm gonna definitely keep an eye on. Anyways, it's gonna be my top watch going into like tomorrow. One of my top watches. I wish the flow was a little smaller, but it could set up for a swing if earnings aren't terrible. Yeah, for a swing, John, exactly. Possibly. I don't know. You know, the news was really powerful the first time. As of now, you know, the stock's not moving that much, and I think it's probably because of earnings. So, so right now I've got eyes on TIS. I have no plan to trade it yet. I've got eyes on IFMK. I've got no plans to trade it yet. XO, I've got eyes on. Don't really want to gamble going into earnings after hours, but I do like the PR with Ford again. And now that they're, you know, and they're actually expanding that program as opposed to pulling, it's obviously great news. Tough call. I don't like when trades go against my rules, and holding into earnings would obviously be against that. Um, so pretty slow this morning. I can tell you for the most part, as of this point, I'm not really going to be trading till end of day. I don't really want to gamble on any of these midday because midday hasn't been working. You may get the oddball one that works midday, but you know, I don't want to. I'm not just going to gamble and hope that the one I'm buying is the one that's going to work. I don't see a good enough catalyst anywhere other than maybe EXO to mess with at all. Vincent, could I look at NSPR, good earnings, and finish the financing? Yeah, we'll take a look at NSPR. Yeah, no clue what to do with this. I don't know. Just no clue. I mean, it's very, the volume's too low. Let me see. Yeah, just absolutely no clue what to do with this. It's a little too liquid, and just I don't see too much for me there. So no play for me on NSPR. Sorry. Can we look at their 424B5 from July 10th on EXO? Sure. All right. So let's see here. EXO. Disclosures. So here's the 424B5 that John's referencing. This is the prospectus. This is a supplement, actually, but 1.6 million shares of common stock, underlying warrants to purchase shares of common stock. Offering 1.6 shares of common stock at an exercise price of $3.74, which are issuable upon the exercise of the currently outstanding warrants that were issued in a registered offering on December 13, 2015. Do not existing immediately exercisable. Does not relate to our issuance of additional shares. Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is just saying that there's 1.6 million shares available at $3.74. So all I'm going to do with that information for the most part is go back to the chart. That was July 10th. Sorry, one second. So for me, yeah, I mean, it's a cause for concern, but only once it gets back up towards there. So I'm okay for now. You know, there's plenty of room to run. It's just going to come down to earnings too, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, so like when I see warrants overhead, as long as they're far enough away to where I can still capture some good gains, then it's okay. Like I just leave those alone. I'm aware that they're there. I know that if we ever get back up towards these highs, there are also going to be warrants. So there's going to be natural resistance from these spike days back in November of last year. And now we've also got some additional warrants here at 374. So that's kind of my, my take on that. It's not too worrisome until we get up there. And even then, like say they drop like news that they're partnering with Ford, they're going to put them in all of their factories, and we get massive amounts of volume, it could trump that easily. So that's what I'm going to take into account if we ever get back up there. Yeah, exactly, Joe. He asked, would the news and run-up trump the shares available at 374 or the other way around? So if volume's huge, okay, then yeah, it could trump, warrants at any given level, and they may not dish them off, I mean, they would probably sell them in chunks. So I have seen huge volume trump warrants, and, and I've seen companies dump warrants into big moves, but it doesn't really affect it because volume was so great. Or it could be the other way around. So if volume's kind of low, yeah, it could absolutely stifle this, and quickly, So it's one way or the other, and you can't know for sure, and that's why price action rules all, and that's what you have to play. So no amount of news or anything should be enough to let you sit through something when price action is telling you the other way around, But it's important. You do have to watch that level, And that's if it ever gets up there. I mean, they could easily report shitty earnings, and then, it's going to take a while. Joe asks, what is considered a lot of warrants, or is it relative to each individual stock? It's relative. So like if there's a million float and then they've got a million warrants, that's the whole float. You know, that'll be a double on the float. If it's a big ass float and it's, you know, and it's a small amount of shares, then it's not as significant. So it is relative to float size for me. I mean, it's relative to float size, and it's also relative to like the average volume that a stock trades too. You know, if a stock is very liquid and there are a ton of warrants out, then you got to be careful. So warrants, I mean, when it comes down to warrants, it's not an exact science either. You know, you don't know, you have no way of knowing until they've um, filed or done a 10Q of whether they have been diluting and using the warrants or not. So but in real time, there's no way of knowing. You know, you can only speculate, you know, based on price action. So and actually, I think next week Tango Baker is going to be doing a little presentation for you guys just on like reverse splits. That should kind of help with the filings a little bit too. Should be pretty cool. Sweet, Chris. Nice, man. Yeah, I figure like I mean there are a lot of services we can use, but I think this is kind of a little bit easier for everyone to just access and just throw it up on YouTube whenever you need. So IFMK is pushing again. And this could be a scenario where it was shorted at the gap and then, you know, it's going to squeeze, but I'm not going to chase it up here. Sorry, just watching, guys. Not too much to talk about right now, so I'm just watching. Any questions, just go ahead and shoot them out. My take on the markets. Okay, overall markets are up. That's good. Microcaps still slow, like still really slow in my opinion. So just got to be patient again. Exo's got my attention, but I'm keeping it in perspective. We've got earnings after hours, float's bigger. I do like the PR with Ford that they're expanding with Ford, and it kind of does remind people that hey, there's a Ford deal in the works. I just don't like that there's earnings after hours. So no slam dunks. IFMK could squeeze easily. It looks like it wants to. I have no doubt there are a lot of short sellers piling in right now as we speak. You know, risking 385 or $4. So with the low float, it's not doing huge volume. I mean, I could see this getting stuffed here really easily, so I'm not going to be messing with it right now. And if this gets stuffed now, it's probably the end, at least for today, of IFMK, because that's what's been happening lately. We haven't had too many of these that have been, you know, kind of completing this ABCD and then going on. That being said, you know, it's a low float, so anything could happen. You know, one big cover right now would be enough to probably push this through. So, John asks, for the stocks that I'm watching, have I looked through all their recent filings? No. EXO, we just looked and saw their prospectus. IFMK, no, I'm not really looking at it. TIS, I'm not really looking at it because I'm not really interested in trading them. You know, it's just one of those things. Like if I'm not interested in trading a stock based on the chart pattern alone, then I don't see any point in going in their filings. That's a waste of time to me. Tango finishes up his short on CHKE. Nice. Yeah, CHKE surprised me a lot. I mean, yesterday I had written it off for dead pretty much. And most of the time I would have been right. Like this crack here into afternoon, going into the afternoon should have like been the end of this thing. But it saved itself into close and tried to gapped up right to this like 130 resistance. Pre-market. So, you know, that's why, you know, even though it was spiking into close yesterday, I wouldn't have bought it anyways with this overhead resistance. It's just like not a high odds play. One of my requirements on an overnight is room to run the next day. And I didn't see too much reward there for me. So definitely could have shorted this morning. I mean, obviously in retrospect, but that's ugly. So yeah, John, like, you know, in a nutshell, I'm not always looking at the filings every single trade. Like it has to get through my initial test, which is chart pattern, you know, like what's on the daily chart, what's on the intraday chart. If I don't like anything I see there, I'm not going to go further and dive into the filings. If I see something I like, then I'm going to look through the filings and make sure there's nothing too dangerous above me. If I see a gap down and I'm trying to figure out what's going on there, I always will look at the filings. So I'm not saying always look at the filings for every single trade because you're kind of spinning your wheels a lot of the time. You know, if the chart pattern is not good enough, then why are you going to even look into it at all? So overall markets are up. Microcap still very slow, which means I am going to still be conservative with size and aggression until I see otherwise. We're going to do a few more minutes this morning, and then I'm packing it up for the morning, just until we get to the afternoon. I'm not trying to take any trades right now. IFMK looks like this should be a stuff here. Maybe not, but we'll see. I'm just waiting for things to get going. I really do want them to get going here. You know, we're a week into August already, and we're still slow, so still waiting for that one supernova to kind of kick things off or you know, some kind of sector momentum to kick things off. But until then, I'm going to just keep being really conservative, just waiting for any really good setup that comes along, and I'll be ready for it, you know. It's a waiting game, and I've been waiting for a while. Which is why it's awesome to have other strategies, you know? I mean, that INND breakout was a good opportunity to make some good money. Sometimes you have to look elsewhere, the OTCs and whatnot, especially when nothing's running with the NASDAQs. So I'll be kind of keeping an eye on OTCs too, but there haven't been many great OTC plays either, so. So I'm still in way conservative mode for now, which is getting frustrating to me. You know, but it's these periods where, like, if you have discipline and you can be patient, that you have a leg up on everyone else. You know, everyone who's been trading recently probably losing quite a bit because there haven't been many great plays. You know, most of the morning spikers have ended up being faders. I mean, you've been getting some bounces, and then they usually get stuffed. So keeping that in mind. So I think we're going to wrap up for this morning. Just so slow, guys. Just so slow. So protect yourself. Don't be trading midday today, especially. Not with these plays doing this kind of volume. You know, it's a lot of low odds setups to the long side right now. It's another boring webinar, but that's all right. When things pick up, it'll be much better. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll be in the chat, okay? So any questions, just ask there. And then we'll be back up tomorrow morning. If things heat up some point today and there are a lot of good plays, we'll do a webinar this afternoon. Not really counting on it, so we'll catch you in chat. Have a good one, guys.